Class, good afternoon. Okay, so in biology, again today, we are going to look at the external structure of the eye. The external structure of the eye. Now, in the previous lesson, we had looked at the internal structure of the eye. The word external means the outside of something. Structure simply means what something looks like. So when we are talking about the external structure of the eye, we want to study what the eye looks like on the outside. When you are looking at the outside structure of someone's eye, what things must you understand? This is what our lesson for today is all about. Yeah. Now, when you look at the eye on the outside, the most, striking feature that you are going to see is the pupil. So the pupil is that dark spot in the middle of the iris. By the way, that pupil is an opening. Okay, it is not a dark dot, but it is an opening through the colored disc that we call the iris. Now, the pupil is part of the eye that forms an opening in the iris. Okay, the pupil contracts or dilates depending on light intensity. The word light intensity simply means how bright or dim the light is. You know that light can either be very bright or very dim. That aspect of dim or bright light is what we call light intensity. So this pupil dilates or contracts depending on the amount of light that is there in the environment where a human being is at that particular time. To constrict simply means to grow small in size. To dilate simply means to grow big in size. So from this explanation, you can see therefore that the pupil either grows big or grows smaller in size depending on the amount of light in the environment where a human being is found at a particular point in time. Yeah, so you must understand that when the light is very bright, the pupil size constricts. Okay? Remember that the word constrict means to become smaller in size. So, when a human being is subjected to a lot of light, when the light is very bright, the size of the pupil constricts. In other words, the size of the pupil becomes smaller. That becoming smaller of the pupil is what we call constricting. Yeah. So, on the other hand, when light is dim, okay, when the light is dim, the size of the pupil becomes bigger. In other words, the pupil dilates. So to dilate simply means to become wider. Okay, to become wider or to grow bigger in size. So what this basically means is that during the night time, in the evening when you are walking in the night, your pupils become wider. They grow much wider in size than they are in the day. Yeah, so when we compare these things side to side, this is what you are going to see. On the left-hand side, when the light is very bright, you can see that the size of the pupil becomes smaller. The pupil contracts. Okay? But when the light is dim, the size of the pupil becomes wider. Okay? So during the night, your pupils are wider than they are during the day when the light intensity is very bright. So what I'm trying to explain to you is the fact that in bright light, the pupil is smaller. In dim light, the pupil grows bigger. These are the things that you must understand when you are studying the external structure of the eye. Once you've looked at your pupil, you must now look at the iris. The iris. Now, the iris is that colored disc that you are able to see when you look at the eyes of a human being. Now, the color of the iris is dependent on the genetics that a particular person has. Other people have got brown eyes. Other people have got blue eyes. Other people have got gray eyes, and yet other people have got green eyes. So when we're talking about the eye color, we're simply talking about the color of the iris. Therefore, you must understand that the iris is the colored disc that controls the amount of light entering the eye by controlling or adjusting the size of the pupil. So we saw in the previous slide that the pupil is that opening that is found in the iris of the eye. Now, the size of the pupil is adjusted by the muscles that are found inside the iris. So you can see from this definition that the function of the iris is to control the amount of light that is entering the eye. Okay, so once you've understood this, you must now understand that inside the iris, we've got special type of muscles that we call the antagonistic muscles. So in the iris, we've got special type of muscles that we call the antagonistic muscles. So you must understand, therefore, that the iris is able to adjust the size of the pupil by the muscles that are found inside of it. Yeah, so you will find that in the iris, there are outer muscles. The outer muscles in the iris are called radial muscles. The outer muscles in the iris are known as the radial muscles. Okay? Then the inner muscles in the iris are called saccular muscles. So you will find that in the iris there are two types of muscles, the radial muscles and the saccular muscles. When you get these radial muscles and then you combine them with saccular muscles, what you have here is the pair of muscles that we call the antagonistic muscles. So antagonistic muscles are pairs of muscles. So in the iris, these pairs of muscles are the radial muscles and the saccular muscles. Now, when you're looking at, the iris under the microscope, this is the thing that you are going to see. But before we can go to that, you must understand that the saccular muscles and the radial muscles in the iris are known as the antagonistic muscles. I've already explained this particular point. So when you're looking at the iris that is found in the eye, you're going to see that there are these muscles that are on the outside, these longitudinal muscles. We call these outer muscles the radial muscles, those ones. Then after you leave the radial muscles, you have the other type of muscles that is closer to the pupil. Okay? These muscles are saccular in nature. They are round. That is why they are called saccular muscles. So when you are looking at your eye, you must understand that the muscles on the outside are radial muscles, whereas the muscles on the inside are known as the secular muscles. Now, these two muscles are together called antagonistic muscles. Why do we call them antagonistic muscles? You must understand that antagonistic muscles are pairs of muscles where when one muscle contracts, the other muscle relaxes. So antagonistic muscles always move in pairs. The word pair means 2 by 2. Okay? Things that move 2 by 2 are known as things that move in pairs. So antagonistic muscles are always paired muscles. And these muscles behave in such a way that when one muscle contracts, the other muscle will relax. When the other muscle relaxes, the other one contracts automatically. So these are the things that happen in the iris of the eye. When the radial muscles, for example, relax, the secular muscles will contract. When the secular muscles relax, the radial muscles contract. So that action of relaxation and contraction is what we call antagonism, to antagonize, where one is pulling, the other one is pushing. When one muscle is pulling, the other one will be pushing. That is what we call antagonism. So such type of muscles are what we call antagonistic muscles. So these are the things that you must understand when you are studying the external structure of the eye. Once you've understood the iris, you must now understand the other external, part of the eye that we call the sclera. Now, the sclera is that whiter part of your eyes. When you look at someone's eye and then you see that white part of the eye, we call that white part of the eye the sclera. Yeah. Now, this sclera is a tough white outer membrane that protects the eye and maintains the shape of the eyeball. So, this sclera protects the eye because it is very tough when you touch it. Also, this sclera maintains the shape of the eyeball. The eye is in form of a ball that we call the eyeball. So this sclera, together with the vitreous humor, maintains the shape of this eyeball. That is the thing. Okay? So now, once you've understood the sclera, you must now understand the cornea. Now, the cornea is this lid-like structure that covers the iris. So you will see that immediately you leave the iris on the outside here, you have this curved, membrane that we call the cornea. Remember that between the cornea and the iris, there's a liquid, that we learned when we were talking about the internal structure of the eye. That's the thing. So this one is the cornea. Now, this cornea is the transparent outer layer of the eyeball. So what you understand as well is the fact that the cornea refracts and focuses light into the eye. So when light is hitting the surface of the eye, the cornea focuses that light so that it can enter into the pupil. Without the cornea, light would be scattered everywhere. So what happens is that when light hits the surface of the eye, the cornea will focus that light so that it goes straight into the pupil like that. So this is the function of the cornea. Once you've understood the cornea, you must now look at the last part of the eye that we're going to learn, which is just the tear gland. So this tear gland is found here on the eyebrow. So this tear gland produces an antiseptic fluid that we call tears. Yeah, now these tears play a very important function when it comes to eyes. Okay, so number one, tears remove dust and destroy bacteria. So when dust or bacteria enter your eyes, automatically the tear glands will produce tears. Those tears are going to remove any dust specks or bacteria that has entered the eye, thereby protecting the eye from damage. Without tears, our eyes by now would have been damaged from so many things. So these are the things that you must understand when you are studying your sense organs. So this is the end of the eye. Study these things carefully in case the Examination Council of Zambia brings these things in our exams this year. Let me wish you a good day. I'll see you again when we will look at the ears.